Hello everyone, today I'm back with another story about the single mother Tiểu San. I hope you enjoy the video. This morning, after dropping little Ivy off at school, Tiểu San returned home with that familiar gentle feeling. She opened the door, and the early season chill swept in, making the tip of her nose sting slightly. Rubbing her hands together, she headed straight into the kitchen, the place where she always felt the most peaceful. She prepared a simple breakfast for herself, a warm slice of bread, a soft-boiled egg, and a cup of hot tea. As she ate, her mind drifted to her plans for the day, tidying up the kitchen corner, checking her notebook for her vegetable sales, and looking through a few new fabric samples she hoped to use for handmade gifts. Tiểu San loved cooking. She loved the feeling of preparing each dish, each little baked item with her own hands. She was so skillful that everything she made was praised by anyone who tried it. That was a simple joy she always cherished. After breakfast, she brought a basket of items into the living room and opened Ivy's wardrobe. The weather had been turning colder lately, the morning breeze was getting crisp. She carefully folded each of Ivy's old sweaters, smiling to herself as she imagined her daughter's adorable face in new outfits. "Gotta buy a few more warm sweaters. Maybe some cute knitted socks too," she mumbled. While she was writing her shopping list, her phone buzzed. It was Hoai. His voice, deep and warm as always, came through the speaker. "What are you doing, Tiểu San?" "Just preparing clothes for Ivy. It's cold now, she needs more warm sweaters." Hoai smiled through the phone, his tone filled with a gentleness reserved only for her. "Then let me take you shopping today. My work has settled down these past few days. I want to spend the whole day with you." Tiểu San froze for a moment. Her heart softened instantly. Hoai, sometimes calm, sometimes busy to the point of breathlessness, yet today he wanted to put everything aside just to be with her. "A whole day," she repeated, smiling slightly. "Yes. A whole day for just the two of us. Doing whatever you want, and whatever I want." A faint warmth spread across her cheeks, not because of the weather, but because of his words. She looked at Ivy's half-folded clothes, then at the soft sunlight streaming through the window, and a peaceful feeling filled the room. Today might really become a special day. Tiểu San smiled. "Then I'll wait for you." On the other end, Hoai also smiled, a smile full of anticipation. After hanging up, Tiểu San quickly fixed her hair and changed into a light knit sweater. She didn't want Hoai to wait, and besides, she was starting to feel an unexplainable excitement. Less than half an hour later, the familiar car horn echoed from the gate. Hoai had arrived. He stepped out of the car, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw her waiting. "Ready?" he asked, half teasing, half tender. "Yes." Tiểu San smiled, her eyes curving into a soft crescent. Hoai helped her into the car and drove to their first stop of the day, a new branch he was preparing to open. It was a project he had been working on for months, and today he wanted Tiểu San to be the first person to see it. As the automatic doors slid open, the spacious interior appeared, new, bright, and still smelling of fresh wood. Shelves were being assembled, and machines were still wrapped in protective plastic. Tiểu San walked around, eyes wide with excitement. "It's beautiful, Hoai. It already looks so classy. I'm still working on it. But when everything is done, I want you and Ivy to be the first guests." Her heart warmed instantly. She looked at him, his eyes calm and full of trust and hope. After touring the branch, Hoai took her to the nearby shopping mall to pick clothes for Ivy. He held the basket while she comfortably selected sweaters, tiny socks, and adorable outfits. He walked behind her, keeping his eyes on her with patient affection, as if this was the thing he loved most in the world. He asked her about every detail, the material, the size, the style, and sometimes he even picked a dress himself. "This one is cute, San. Ivy would look adorable in it." Tiểu San nodded, her heart warming at the sight of the basket slowly filling up with things chosen just for her daughter. In that moment, Hoai didn't just look like a companion, he looked like a husband, a man ready to walk with her through everything in life. After finishing Ivy's shopping, Hoai checked the time and said, "Let's go to the market?" Today I want to eat something we cooked together. Tieu San laughed at his enthusiasm. You? Going to the market? For you, I'll do anything. Her cheeks burned, but her smile couldn't be hidden. They went to the market together. Hai carried the big basket while Tieu San led him from stall to stall. They picked vegetables, meat, and seasonings, chatting about what to cook for dinner. At one point, Hai clumsily picked the wrong vegetables, making Tieu San burst into laughter. Choose this bunch, it's fresher. I thought the other one looked better, he said, scratching his head but smiling brightly. Such simple moments, yet they brought their hearts closer than ever. When their basket was finally full, Tieu San turned to look at Hai. The afternoon sunlight fell gently across his face, the face of a man who was willing to give her an entire day of his time. And she knew, today would be unforgettable. The morning market was livelier than usual that day. Voices of bargaining mixed with the rhythmic sound of knives chopping on wooden boards, the calls of vendors echoing through every row. Amid the blend of fresh vegetable scents, fish, and meat, the soft laughter and playful chatter of Hai and Tieu San stood out, drawing a few vendors to glance at them with amused smiles. Hai walked beside her, one hand carrying the shopping basket, the other occasionally reaching out to gently guide her through the crowd. As Tieu San picked vegetables, she explained to him the difference between young and old greens, and showed him how to choose fresh cuts of meat. The atmosphere between them was so natural, so easy, that they looked like a young married couple preparing for a cozy weekend meal. You grabbed the wrong bunch, this one's too old, she chuckled. I thought all vegetables looked the same. Hai scratched his head, slightly embarrassed but still wearing a gentle smile. They were so absorbed in their shopping that they didn't notice a pair of eyes watching them from not far away, the eyes of Sun, Tieu San's ex-husband. Sun had just entered the market to buy a few things for lunch. As he walked past the vegetable stalls, he suddenly caught sight of a familiar figure. At first, he thought he was mistaken, because the woman he saw looked completely different from the one he remembered. But when Tieu San turned her face toward the light, her eyes curved as she laughed, he knew instantly he hadn't mistaken her. It was Tieu San, his former wife. But the Tieu San standing there now was no longer the quiet, weary woman he once knew. She looked brighter, more confident, her smile so radiant that it made Sun halt in place. She laughed freely, comfortably, a kind of laughter she never had when she was with him. At that moment, a sharp, bitter ache shot through Sun's chest. He stood frozen as memories came flooding back. He remembered the mornings when Tieu San woke early to cook noodle soup for him, the kitchen filled with warmth and aroma. He remembered the nights she waited up for him even when it was deep into the night. He remembered the times she silently cleaned the dinner table when he came home irritable and refused to eat. And he remembered the tears she always wiped away quietly so she wouldn't bother him. Back then, Sun thought all of that was normal. He thought Tieu San would always be there, patient, devoted, enduring, and that she would never leave. But now, seeing her cheerful beside another man, he finally understood, everything she did because she loved him. And he took it all for granted. A heavy sigh escaped him. If only I had treated her better. Just then, Hai reached for a bag of vegetables from the vendor. Tieu San thanked him, and the two laughed again at something he said. That simple, warm moment made Sun's heart tighten painfully. He couldn't tell if it was jealousy, regret, or heartbreak, perhaps all of them tangled together. Why had he never spoken to her so gently? Why had he never gone grocery shopping with her, carrying baskets by her side? Why had he never smiled at her the way Hai smiled now? He found no answer, only the bitter truth that his own indifference had destroyed their marriage. Moved by something he couldn't name, Sun quietly followed them at a distance. Far enough not to be noticed, yet close enough to witness every affectionate gesture between them. He saw how Hai always stood on the outer side to shield her from the crowd. He saw the way Tieu San softly laughed at his jokes. He saw how they looked at each other, gentle, trusting, full of tender emotion, things she had never experienced with him. When Hai and Tieu San exited the market, Sun remained standing for a long moment. He watched their figures fade into the distance, unsure whether he still had the right to feel hurt or jealous. Meanwhile, Tieu San and Hai remained completely unaware of the silent eyes following them. They returned home and began preparing lunch. Tieu San rolled up her sleeves and laid the ingredients neatly on the kitchen counter. Hai stood beside her, also rolling up his sleeves, ready to help wash the vegetables. "Today, I have to learn how to make your special dish," Hai said enthusiastically. "Fine, just don't burn the kitchen down," she teased. Hai looked at her with warm, sincere eyes, unable to hide his deepening affection. "Even if it burns, it's okay, as long as you're here with me." Tieu San blushed, turning away quickly to hide her shy smile. Sunlight filtered through the window, casting a soft glow over the kitchen and making the moment between them feel even warmer and more delicate. If Sun had seen that scene, his heart would have tightened again. He stayed hidden at a distance, watching every gesture, every look, every smile exchanged between them. Each time Tieu San giggled at something Hai said, each time she tilted her head to listen to him talk, another sharp twist gripped Sun's chest. It had been so long since he last saw her smile so much. In fact, throughout their years together, he couldn't recall a time she ever smiled so brightly and freely. Back then, her life revolved around cooking, housework, and meeting his expectations. He clearly remembered how he had snapped at her, complained about cold meals, and withdrawn into silence whenever work frustrated him, leaving her to swallow her tears alone. He used to think she put up with everything because she was weak. But now he realized, she endured because she loved him too deeply. She tried her best to keep their home together, while he only knew how to take without giving. Now, seeing her happy with Hai, Sun felt something ugly stir inside him: irritation, resentment, jealousy. The sight of Tieu San tilting her head and smiling at Hai felt like a knife twisting inside him. He clenched his fists. He didn't want to watch anymore. He didn't want to see them. He didn't want to accept that she had found happiness, a happiness that no longer included him. He turned and walked away, moving quickly through the market like someone running from reality. But the farther he walked, the louder her laughter echoed in his mind, her smile, her gentle expression, her voice. Even after entering his home, he couldn't calm down. He sat heavily onto a chair, placed the shopping bag aside, pressed his hand to his forehead, and exhaled a long, exhausted breath. His mind was in turmoil. He remembered the day Tieu San first showed him baby Ivy, the tenderness and happiness in her eyes. He remembered the time the three of them lived together, not always perfect, but at least they once were a family. And what made it impossible for Sun to let go was Ivy. Even after the divorce, even though their lives had separated, Ivy remained the single thread connecting them. Ivy still called him Dad with innocence and purity, unaware of the adult world's complications. Thinking of that, a thought flickered in his mind. He straightened up, eyes sharpening with sudden intent, as if he had found a way back in. If Tieu San had someone new now, if she had changed, did he still have a chance? Sun told himself that if he tried, if he showed up more often, if he cared, maybe she would open the door to the past again. Maybe, their old feelings would return. Even if the chance was small, even if it was foolish, he still wanted to try. And most importantly, he had a legitimate reason to appear, Ivy. The more he thought about it, the more he believed he could do it. He began forming a plan in his mind: visit Ivy more often, bring gifts, stay close to Tieu San during those visits. He convinced himself that as long as he approached gently, created opportunities to talk, maybe she would think differently, maybe she would remember the past they once shared. Sun didn't know whether his thoughts were hope or selfishness. He only knew he couldn't stand seeing Tieu San with another man, especially someone like Hai, someone who gave her what he never did. Standing from his seat, Sun walked to the window, staring at the small courtyard outside. He clenched his fists, his decision firm. Starting today, he would find a way to approach Tieu San again through Ivy. Right or wrong, he would still do it. He wouldn't give up. He wouldn't let her fall into someone else's arms. He wouldn't admit that he had truly lost her. And so, a quiet plan began to take shape in Sun's mind. As for Tieu San, she had no idea that Sun had seen her at the market. In her mind now, there was only Hai, the meal they were preparing together, the gentle warmth of the moment, and the simple joy she was savoring with her whole heart. In the kitchen, heat from the simmering broth filled the room, making it feel strangely familiar and comforting. Standing by the stove, Tieu San swiftly chopped vegetables and added seasonings with careful precision. She wanted today's meal to be special. Behind her, Hai leaned lightly against the counter, watching her with eyes that revealed an unmistakable admiration. He loved the way she focused, the way she tilted her head slightly while tasting the broth, the skillfulness and quiet diligence she showed, qualities he had never seen in anyone else. In Tieu San, there was a sense of peace that wasn't dull, a softness that was still strong. Watching her like this, Hai felt luckier than any man alive. In his heart, he praised her silently, thinking that Tieu San was exactly the kind of woman he had always hoped to have by his side. A woman he didn't just love, but wanted to hold on to for life, to marry, to build a peaceful home with. When the meal was ready and placed on the table, it was as if the whole house lit up. They sat across from each other, eating and talking endlessly. Tieu San shared small stories about her day, little things that became surprisingly charming when she told them. And Hai talked about the struggles of opening a new branch, office problems, the things that troubled him, and the things he hoped for in the future. Time seemed to move faster when they were together. A quick glance at the clock startled Hai. More than 2 hours had passed, though it felt like only a few minutes. The atmosphere between them was so natural, so warm. They tried to share more with each other, no holding back, no hiding. Through Hai's stories, Tieu San learned more about him, a man who had endured many hardships, who had a bruised past but walked through it with strength. She listened intently to every word, every emotion he revealed. She wanted to know everything about him, to understand him more deeply, to know what had shaped him into the calm, steady man he was now. She knew well that the Hai sitting before her was no longer the impulsive young man he once was. He had grown into someone responsible, determined, accomplished, and mature in ways that few men could match. And so, in her heart, a quiet thought bloomed. She needed to try harder too. Not to chase him, not to cling to him, but to stand confidently beside him, to feel worthy of walking next to him. To never again feel small or inferior in life. Every story he shared, every glance he gave her, every smile he offered made the love in her grow little by little. She knew that with this man, she had found a peace she hadn't felt in years. They talked through the entire afternoon, eating and chatting until the sunlight outside turned golden. The whole house seemed wrapped in the warmth and happiness they were creating together. Tieu San never imagined she would have a day as gentle and complete as this. But Hai had given it to her, effortlessly, sincerely. She looked at him and silently thanked him for appearing in her life at the moment she needed it most. After finishing their meal, they stayed at the table a little longer, continuing to talk about the small things in life. Their conversations wandered from the new branch he was opening to gardening, to Ivy's school life. Everything felt softer and more intimate when shared between them. When the sky began to dim, Hai looked at her and gently asked, "Do you want to go for a walk?" She nodded. She wanted to prolong this peaceful time, even just a little more. Hai took her to the lakeside nearby. The still water reflected the soft orange sky of sunset. A gentle breeze blew, lifting strands of Tieu San's hair, and at that moment, Hai couldn't help reaching out to take her hand. Her hand was smaller, soft, and warm. She flinched slightly from surprise, but then let her hand rest in his. The feeling made her heart race, unfamiliar yet familiar at the same time. A feeling of being cared for, of being loved. They walked slowly along the lakeside path, the sun sinking low and painting everything in a tender golden hue. Tieu San looked up, her eyes glimmering in the light. "And Hai?" He looked only at her, the look of a man who had finally found what he'd always been searching for. Time seemed to stop. No past, no future. Only the present moment, with the two of them walking side by side in a quiet, beautiful peace. When the sunset faded, Hai and Tieu San went together to pick up little Ivy from school. The moment Ivy saw Hai, she burst with joy. Uncle Hi. Uncle Hi. She ran toward him with her tiny arms open wide. Hi bent down, lifted her up, and spun her around gently, making Ivy giggle uncontrollably. Watching them together softened Tieu San's heart even more. Seeing her daughter cling to Hai with such innocence, seeing Ivy's bright smile whenever he held her, made something inside Tieu San settle peacefully. For years, she had only wished for someone who could love not just her, but Ivy too, someone who would make her daughter feel whole, not missing anything. Hai set Ivy down and held her hand as they walked back toward Tieu San. The three of them walked home together, a simple image, but so complete, like a real family moving in harmony. That evening, the house was filled with laughter. Hai played with Ivy, pretending to be a little monster chasing her around the living room. Tieu San watched them, her heart opening little by little. She had never seen Ivy so happy with any man other than her biological father. The last rays of sunlight streamed through the window, brushing over Ivy's soft hair and Hai's gentle face, creating a scene that Tieu San wished she could preserve forever. This was what she had longed for. A small, simple home filled with love. A man who not only loved her, but loved her daughter as well. She looked at Hai, looked at Ivy. And for the first time in many years, Tieu San felt that maybe true happiness had finally begun to knock on her door.
Xin chào mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ và hạnh phúc. Video hôm nay của mình vẫn đang kể về câu chuyện của người mẹ đơn thân Lý Tiểu San. Sau những khó khăn, Tiểu San đã rời bỏ được người chồng cũ và đến bên Hải. Cuộc sống bình yên bên Hải khiến Tiểu San vui vẻ và hạnh phúc. Cô dường như đã trở thành một con người khác, hay cười hơn, hoạt bát hơn và cũng trở nên dịu dàng hơn, giống như người vợ mà Hải thường ao ước. Khoảnh khắc Sơn nhìn thấy Tiểu San thì trong lòng có chút ghen tị và ân hận. Liệu rằng Sơn sẽ làm gì để níu kéo lại Tiểu San, hay anh ta có âm mưu gì để phá hoại hạnh phúc Tiểu San hay không, thì mời mọi người đón xem ở video tiếp theo nha. Sắp tới thì mình cũng sẽ chia sẻ thêm nhiều câu chuyện về những người mẹ đơn thân hoặc những câu chuyện về trong cuộc sống. Thì mình hy vọng mọi người có thể ủng hộ kênh của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nhé.